Welcome everybody to this new Q&A session on the PMS, the product UI and API. Before we start with all the questions, a couple of housekeeping notes. So as you know, this session is going to be recorded and we will make it available through our EMA YouTube channel and also in the event webpage. The tool that we will be using as always is Slido. You can ask your question and also give your input. The interaction with Slido is, as always, is voluntary, but you can also opt to remain anonymous. But if you choose to use Slido, you know that you consent the processing of your personal data, as it is explained in the EMA data privacy statement for Slido. A couple of notes on the upcoming events that we have. So as you can see, based on your feedback, we have extended the number of Q&A sessions that we will have. So we have one per month until summer. So we have another one in April, in May, and also in June. Tomorrow we will have the public system demo. It will be broadcasted in the EMA webpage. You can see the agenda. So in case you only want to focus on PMS or in EAF, you know when each of the teams is going to be presenting. Then we have, as always, the Sport and Exhibit PD status update webinars. We will have one on the 9th of April, another one on July, and another one in October. You have here the link to the event page where you can register. And last but not least, as we have already announced, the PMS Info Day this year is going to take place on the 21st of May. It will be, it's an hybrid event. Some people might be on site and we will also broadcast the event. You can already register if you want to attend the broadcast. As always, we are using Slido. Here you have the QR code and also the hashtag, so you can use the PMSQA 2503 to start asking and upvoting the questions that you might have for us today. So I think I'm going to stop sharing, and Greta, I think you are going to share your screen, or Vivian. I'm not sure who is going to present the slides or the questions. Otherwise, I can also do it. Thank you.
No, I can share. Thank you, Marcos. Okay, perfect. And there we go. Okay, right. Give me a second because my computer is particularly slow today, but bear with me. Okay. There we go. Okay. Let me just put in presentation mode. Okay, perfect. So we should start to see some questions. Okay, perfect. So we already have the first one. Okay, so regarding MBO enrichment, it was mentioned that internal discussions are underway to reassess the mandatory status of agency field. Could you provide an estimated timeline for when an official decision regarding this review will be communicated?
Yeah, so this will be solved during this quarter. We already have a user story that we have prioritized, and we will remove the mandatory conformance of the agency. It will be now conditional. So if you know the reference number, then you will need to include the agency. But then I think it's by the end of the quarter is when we will be able to have this new conformance on the agency. We have discussed with the SMEs what the conformance should be, etc., and we will be implementing this in during this quarter. So hopefully by the end of the quarter we will remove this mandatory conformance on the agency field.
Marcos, if I can comment just on this, we are also planning to publish an update this MBO session of chapter 2, so you can also see reflected what Marcos mentioned in terms of conformance.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Still about MBO enrichment. Is a reference number field automatically mandatory when the agency field is populated? If the agency field is always mandatory, doesn't this make reference number field mandatory as well?
So as we said, we are reviewing this section. We will be changing the conformance of a couple of fields. But as far as I know right now, the reference number is not a mandatory field. Is optional. What is mandatory is the agency. So we will be changing that. If right now you know the agency, but you don't know the reference number, you can send this information as well. So you can leave it empty and just populate the agency. But again, we will be reviewing this couple of fields during this quarter, and we will change the conformance.
Okay, so MBO enrichment. For each product, should the latest MIA code GDMP certificate from ELDRA GDMP or the MIA code present in the dossier be submitted?
I'm not sure about the answer to this question.
Maybe I can help you because colleagues on this aspect, we still have an open discussion with our SMEs, and we need to clarify a bit more on these certificates. So maybe if you can bear with us, we will be able to share updated information in chapter 2 as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next question. So the MBO enrichment, if I find in the M3 dossier in 3.2.p.3.1 section, manufacturer, a brief description on operation, importer, is this correct to assign the operation type physical importation? And of course, the ID that follows.
We
Yeah, go over.
No, my first, because we are not, we don't have the responsibility to define what you should enter or not based on your dossier. But my first thing would be just have a look on the definition in the RMS list and see if there is a matching with what is described in module 3. And if not, I would even check with your competent authority just to be sure. I'll check in by myself in the list, and I'll also give you a bit more information in Slido straight away.
My suggestion, we agree. I mean, I agree with this answer, but my suggestion would also be maybe check with your regulatory affairs colleagues and check what have they, if they have included this manufacturer with this operation type in the application form. Because at the end is the data in the application form, you need to submit this physical importation. So if this manufacturer has already been submitted with this operation type in the EAF, with this MBO, then you need to follow the same approach. But as Veronica said, we don't have the dossier. We could not really, I mean, just with this question here, we would not be able to say, yes, is this or not. I would really check internally, like, okay, is this the real operation type for this manufacturer in your company? And then, yeah, submit it as this if needed.
Okay. Next question. Okay, still about the reference number for the MBO enrichment. So MBO enrichment, the reference number code can change independently of regulatory procedures. Should the reference number be updated solely following regulatory actions, or should it be maintained independently of such procedures?
So in principle, you need to keep up to date the data that you are submitting also to PMS, not only for the reference number, but also for the manufacturers. Like if you remove a manufacturer or if you include a new one, you need to keep this data up to date. The same would be with the reference number. So if it changes because there is a change on the MIA or whatever, then you need to also keep this number up to date.
Okay. Next question. Is Thiamed synchronized with OMS? If yes, which is the frequency?
It is synchronized with OMS. So whenever you have, for example, a manufacturer or an MA holder, Um, it's a bit more complex, but yeah, it is synchronized with OMS, and they are able to see the data from OMS. This is real time. Like if there is a change or something, like a new organization, then SciAmed can see this new organization. I don't really. I would need like a follow-up question on this is like why it is because you have made a change on the name, for example, on OMS and you don't see it reflected in PMS, then this is normal. I mean, in the Q&A document of PMS, we are explaining that changes that are happening in OMS to the name, for example, of the company, this is not reflected in PMS and in the consuming systems. And we are working on that. There is an internal team that is discussing how this should be handled. But for the moment, that is we are having this issue. Changes on the name, for example, are not reflected in PMS. So yeah, it's a bit of, I would need a bit of more context to really give a reply. But yeah, SciAmed is connected with OMS and it's yeah, real time.
Okay. Next question. Okay, regarding the package product definition, the entry for description and marketing status is mandatory, but only populated for CAPS. How can the entry get back to PMS empty for NAPS? Will there be an error message as it is mandatory for population?
Okay, again, I would need a bit more context. So the description of the package product definition, this is the package description coming from XCBMPD, and the marketing status, this is coming from Iris, sorry. This data is not going to be, so the marketing state, I would need a bit more context. The thing is, package description is coming from XCBMPD and it can be empty in XCBMPD and therefore in PMS. And the marketing status is not submitted through PMS. It is submitted through IRIS or ESMP for non-CAPS. If you are talking about the enrichment, we will not consider these two entries from PMS. So you can submit whatever you want through the API when we open it. The description and the marketing status will not be taken. We will only take manufacturers and the structured data of the pack size. So yeah, we will not get this information through the API because we are not opening these fields. Again, if this is a question for the API, we might need a bit more information. But as a general rule, I think what I have replied is what is happening.
Okay, perfect. So moving on. Any timeline you can share regarding the fix of data migration issues?
But it depends on which data migration issue. So in the PMS Q&A document, we have listed the most relevant issues that we have found, like the problem with the authorized dose form, for example, or the units of presentation that are missing. And we have expected timeline when we will be solving this. So for example, for those products where the authorized dose form is missing, this will be fixed by the end of a sprint 1, so in 2 weeks. Then we have other issues like with the the units of presentation. This will be solved during this quarter because we have prioritized this bug. So I would recommend you to go and have a look at the Q&A document because we have the bugs that we have identified and also the expected time when we will be solving them. And we also like update this document like at least once every quarter, if not more. So you can have a look at this document.
Next question. We found discrepancies in manufacturer data for CAPS products in PMS UI. A ticket to update end dates for inactive organization led to their removal. due to pre-migration end dates. Should we add end dates or delete entries in MAH RIMS?
So that is a bug that we have right now. If in Siamet the manufacturer activity has an end date, this activity is removed from PMS, but we want to solve this issue. We want to just reflect the end date. So my proposal would be that in your RIMS, you capture the end date. So this way you will be able to have the history of the manufacturers and the business operations. And we will also be solving this bug in PMS.
Okay. 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 Yes. So here they were just asking about an update for chapter 2. So when will this happen?
So we haven't yet established a timeline for the publication of the updated chapter 2, but I aim April, maximum mid of April ideally, because we need to close a few topics on this MBO section, and then we can release it.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so next question. Germany. National IDs have recently been made available for the individual pack sizes. Until when should these be submitted? Can this info be submitted via PMS or XEV MPD or both?
These national IDs have to be included in the package description of the EV code. You need to keep the, let's say, the authorization number that you have in XCVMPD. And as we explained, and it's also explained in chapter 3.2 of XCVMPD, national ID should be included in the package description. So then it's easy to identify, okay, this package is for this specific presentation, and you really know which one it is. You need to include this information until XCVMPD is decommissioned. It is not mandatory, but it's highly recommended that you do that, because that will help the NCA also to do the mapping, and that will also help the marketing authorization holders to identify the specific pack sizes when you have the same authorization number for multiple pack sizes. Then you need to include this information only in XCVMPD, because XCVMPD for the moment is the only source where we take the package description from. So yeah, this information is you can find it in the chapter 3.2 on how to include this information.
Next question. Inconsistency in data BW, the PMS API and PUI. We have received responses to our tickets that updates are being made in API, but this will take time for these updates to reflect in PUI. PIs explain when these updates will reflect in PMS PUI.
Yeah, so you know that in the last weeks we have had a couple of downtimes on the PMS API because they were doing some releases. So changes that were happening in the API were not, took some time to reach the product UI. In theory, within a couple of hours, maybe a bit more, whatever has been updated in the PMS API should be reflected in the product UI. It's just because we need to run an integration routine. So the product UI takes the data from the API. It just takes time. If once you've done a change and it's in the API, or the ServiceNow the people from ServiceNow tells you, yeah, this is in the API. If the next day you don't see this change, you should reply, yeah, I cannot see the change, so we can investigate what is the issue. But yeah, again, changes made in the API should take a couple of hours, maybe a bit more if the queue is very long, but shouldn't take more than a day to be reflected.
Next question. In terms of pack sizes, what are the requirements for products which do not have multiple pack sizes? Does anything need to be amended in XEV MPD?
Not really. If you have already submitted your pack size and it is the only one, then you don't need to do anything. You are already compliant. You have your pack size in XBMPD. In PMS, you will have your product with the specific pack size. You don't need to do anything.
Okay. So next question. Is it possible to reopen service desk tickets? Some have been closed with the response that the bug or the issue, registration, migration, and mapping, EXVMPD or to PMS, PUI, etc., will be solved in the future, but have not been solved yet.
So you can reopen tickets in a service desk. That is an option that you have. The thing is, the approach that we are following is if we know that we have an issue that is not going to be solved in the near future or is something that we cannot fix by validating the product or performing any immediate change, we just notify the user that we know this is a known issue and we close the ticket because otherwise we would not be able to track all the tickets that we have, and we will be updating the users with the PMS Q&A document, with the webinars, etc., when specific bugs are solved, and then you can check, okay, the bug that has been solved is the one that was impacting my product. You can review if now your product is correct, and if not, you can tell, hey, you told me that this issue is now solved, but I still see my product is not correct. So that is the approach that we are following. If we can correct the product, we keep the ticket open until the problem is fixed. But if it's a known issue, like for example, the one with the authorized dose form or something like this, we just close the ticket and we notify the user like, okay, this will be solved in the near future. We will let you know. This is the approach that we are following.
Next question. We have observed some irretrievable PMS IDs in PMS PUI can be retrieved in API. Please clarify the reason for such behavior of the two interfaces. Does it mean API can fetch more data for any subset of PMS IDs which can be retrieved in PUI?
So again, that is one of the points that is, for example, included in the Q&A document. So in the PMS API, we have products where the authorized dose form, instead of being an RMS ID, it's an EB code because we had a bug with some authorized dose forms. So you have the product in the PMS API, but if you see you look for the authorized dose form, you will see an EB code. The way the product UI is built doesn't allow products where you have an EV code in the authorized dose form, so you will not be able to find it. Same, for example, if you have an inactive MA holder, you can see your product in the PMS API, but not in the product UI. So these are some of the discrepancies that you can find. We are working on that. So now in 2 weeks, we will have this bug on the authorized dose form solved. So all the products in the API with an EV code in the authorized dose form, as we will remove the EV code and we will have the RMS ID, will be you will be able to find them in the product UI. This is explained in the Q&A document. So yeah, sometimes there are these discrepancies is the way the product UI is taking the data from the source. So we can find these discrepancies. If you have a specific question, like I can see, I mean, I would recommend you, like if you have access to the API and you see the product there and not in the UI, then look for the authorized dose form or look for the holder and see if you have one of those issues, like the EV code on the authorized dose form or the location is inactive or the organization is inactive. And otherwise, you can raise a ticket and we can check what is the issue.
Okay. So next question. I have a few additional medicinal products in PMS caused by mixing normal space characters non-breaking space or micro characters and the Greek symbol mu. Should we or you normalize presentation names at upload?
Well, that is your responsibility because for example, in Greece, for Greek products, the name is one of the defining elements. So if you have different TV codes with small changes like a space or characters that are using these the Greek characters, etc., then the system will consider them as different products. Like they will not be able to group them because the name, which is one of the grouping elements, is different among the EV codes. So that is your responsibility to go to XMPD, check which are the discrepancies, and harmonize the name among all the EV codes that belong to the same medicinal product.
Next question. So some PMS medicinal products are created as duplicate due to their third acknowledgements in XCV and PD. Is there any intention to stop third acknowledgement until the process is clarified?
No, we cannot stop the third acknowledgement because the third acknowledgement is created once the EV code is validated, and we will not stop validating products in XCV. It's one of the main reasons that we have. I mean, we need it for ICSRs, pharmacovigilance purposes, etc. So we cannot stop validating products in XCV. What we've done is improve the how the validation is performed. So we try to validate the EV codes that are submitted at the same time. So the validation is harmonized, and we perform the same validation to all these EV codes. Um, so yeah, we are trying to improve this even more with the updates and everything, but we will not stop the validation of records in XCVMPD.
I'm not sure if it's just me, Marcus, but I heard you were breaking up a bit. So, yeah.
Well, the answer is that no, we will not stop the validation of products in XCVMPD because we need to perform this I mean, for the core activities of EMA, for pharmacovigilance, etc. And that we are trying to improve this, the validation process. We have already implemented a couple of improvements, but we will be doing a bit more updates and improvements this year.
Okay, perfect. We could hear you now.
Okay.
Okay, so next question. When some fields are not populated in the PMS or records are not visible, the solution is to send a dummy update. Can this workaround be considered a temporary solution? By when is a fix expected?
Yeah, so this dummy update, I think you really need to you should identify what is the issue, or you should raise a ticket so we can identify the issue. You should not be doing dummy updates just for the sake of doing this, because the bug or the issue can be in another place, and you are just sending dummy updates that are not working or are not going to fix the issue. We will discuss with the development team like specific bugs or issues that we know, and that will improve the fact that we will be able to take all the data that is coming from PMS. We need to discuss this with the development team. We know that we have some issues here, but again, I would not send dummy updates just for the sake of it. You really need to make sure that okay, the bug it will be solved with this. So I would maybe prefer you to open a ticket instead of just sending dummy updates to your products.
How can we update manufacturing authorization reference number data given the varying formats from different authorities? And how can we specify the health authority such as FDA or EMA that issued the reference number?
So you can update it like through the same process as you use for the enrichment. You can use it to update data that was already submitted. So for example, if you have included the reference number and now it's changed, you can go to this product, you can start the edit process, you can go to the manufacturer and to the business operation, and you have the option to edit, and you can edit the reference number, for example. And then for this reference number is this authority that we were talking about. So you can also include this information. Something important is if you are talking about a cap, because you are talking here about EMA, then we don't have the reference number in PMS because we are not taking this from Siamet, and you cannot really update your manufacturers for caps. So if it's a non-cap, again, you can do it through the product UI following the enrichment process. For a non-cap, you need to, sorry, for a cap, you need to open a ticket because we will need to do changes if needed in Siamet.
Okay. If structured pack sizes data and MBO's data are updated in PMS, will this be visible in XEV MPD in any way?
No, because we don't have MBOs or manufacturers in XVMPT, and we will not include them. The idea, our goal is to decommission XVMPD, so there is no reason why we would now invest time on creating new fields in XVMPD for this. So, and that's why we are asking you to submit this data through PMS and not in XVMPD. So the answer is no.
Okay, next question. Before sending my fire message, I have to retrieve the PMS version of the product. Are versions altered only by XCVMPD, match and merge, or are there any other scenarios to alter a PMS version? As sending back fire to enrich must have same PMS.
So the main reason why we change the version is because there are updates coming from either from Siamet or XCVMPD.
I think, Marcos,
Yeah.
this question is the user is referring to when you submit an update as an enrichment via using PMS PUI, sometimes the message that you receive says failed. And if it fails, we check and we basically give the confirmation that most of the time it happens because in the meantime, when you were updating the product in PMS PUI, in XMPD somebody else has updated this product and the version couldn't match. So the change that you were about to submit couldn't be processed because of the change of the version. So this is a situation where it can happen. At the same time, in Q2, we're working to address a solution that can prevent this kind of situation by alerting the user that before submitting a change or even starting the update of a product in PUI, the version has changed in the meantime, so we need to consider that. So I think it is linked to that. So it can happen. You can have a version that changes of PMS because XCVMPD users maybe in the meantime has updated something in XCVMPD. So our recommendation for the moment is to make sure that before submitting in PY any updates for MBO or pack size sections, you're really you can really take into consideration that nobody should update XCVMPD. Otherwise, your updates, maybe you spent a lot of time in updating this information, may fail. So there is also this kind of synchronization across users to consider. And I hope I replied.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, perfect. So here the question is regarding the fact that in the previous webinar, it was mentioned that the correction of substance with SVG flag equals 0 is not mandatory urgent for the time being, but is actually asked if the activity is to be considered mandatory or not, given what happens on XCV MPD.
I would need to know what changes were made by the validation team. So during the last webinar, I also explained that depending on the data that you have in your SMPC or the dossier, the module 3, whatever you are submitted, you can include one substance or the other. Um, yeah, it depends on the case. I don't know what was corrected and if the correction was like correct or not. Um, the validation team is if you are submitting substances with the SVG flag 0, they are validating them and they are following the process that I explained. But again, you really need to have the correct data in the document that you have submitted. So with this information, I cannot really reply to this. I can just say that, yeah, it is not mandatory. If you are doing it or not, then the validation team will take whatever you have submitted and check it against the document, like the SMPC or the module 3 that you are sending to XEVMPD. We would need more information on this one.
Okay. When we open the ticket for the updates in PMS, the PMS team advised us to send a dummy update by adding a dot to the package description. The PMS team did some dummy updates to initiate the workflow of 3-Act to update the data in PMS.
Yeah, so again, I mean, when I said that you shouldn't do these dummy updates just for the sake of it is because sometimes the issue is not on the system not taking your product or something, is the OMS mapping is wrong or the RMS mapping is wrong. So you can update your product in XMPD as many times as you want, that the bug will still be there. If the service desk team has and make the analysis and they are aware, like, okay, with a dummy update or validating the product, the issue will be solved, then this is a different scenario. You know, it's we need to do a bit more analysis to see if with a dummy update we would be able to solve the issue. And also for the next question on the gateway and EV web, messages are so any message that comes from to XEVMPD, doesn't matter if it's EV web or the gateway, we are considering this and these messages in the same way. So that shouldn't be the reason why we are not processing this message.
Okay. Next question. Should the 6.5 part of the SPC be used obligatory for the packaging data? It differs from one country to another and is not structured. Again, what language should be used for packaging data enrichment?
So you can use the data that you have in section 6.5 on the SMPC. For the package description, and you can do it in the language that you want. It can either be English or the national language, that is fine. In chapter 3.2 of XMPD, we have explained that for multilingual countries, ideally you should be using the same package description for all the EV codes that belong to the same package. So we recommend you to use English and use the same package description for all of them. But then for other products, you can use the national language. Now, when you are going to enrich the package data through the product UI, three tablets are three tablets in Spanish, in English, and in French. So the structured data will be the same. Then on the package description, you can include a slightly different information if in the SMPC is slightly different. We have always recommended that for the package description, don't use a copy paste of section 6.5 because it doesn't make sense. It's just 3 lines of text that really will not help you to identify this package. So it would be better if you can structure it a bit, like with the material, the units of presentation, and the amount, something like this. So yeah, it's I would recommend you to check chapter 3.2 for a bit more information on how to structure this data that you are submitting. But for the enrichment, you don't use a language. You use a unit like 5, and then RMS ID is 5 tablet or 5 bucks or whatever. So there is not really a language for the enrichment.
Okay. I think here someone rephrased their question. Before sending, you download PMS data, then you enrich, then you send back. Sending back to the FHIR, the field description and marketing status are mandatory as they come pre-populated from API, but only for CAPS. What about NAPS?
Oh my God, wait. Um, Before sending, you download PMS data, then you enrich, then you send back. Sending back the fields description and marketing status. I'm not sure if you are talking about PMS or ESMP.
Yeah, I think it's definitely you're not talking on about the PMS because we cannot enrich anything apart the MBO. So probably either IRIS or ESMP submissions. But just to clarify, the fact that you're submitting marketing status descriptions via another channel, it doesn't imply that you see this information reflected in PMS. Because if you open chapter 7, the marketing status, for instance, is empty. We are not retrieving this information from anyone. At the beginning, when we went live, we could see data from CAPS because there's where a link between IRIS and PMS, PUI, not even API, was wrongly put in place. But we have decided to stop that because it doesn't follow the process that we had defined in PMS chapter 2. So you don't see, if you submit this information, you won't see them reflected in PMS, PUI, nor in API. I don't know, Marcus, if this user, because I remember we had a feature for blocking the exposure of marketing status from IRIS for CAPS, definitely not for NAPS. I don't remember if this has been implemented already, but I think so. I can check it.
Yeah, but I think this question is more related to ESMP because they are downloading the data. Yeah, I think maybe we need to know if this is ESMP or product UI, because in product UI you are not really downloading anything to then with pre-populated data that then you submit. That is more the process of ESMP.
Okay. Moving on. Regarding SciMed OMS, the question arises for some differences, for instance, regarding the postcode. In PMS for CP, so from SciMed, we see a postcode for producer, but in OMS, the postcode is different and there is only one record.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. So maybe in OMS, this postcode was updated like, I don't know, 2 months ago or last week. This change is not reflected in PMS. So we would need to check if that is the case or there is any other reason. I would recommend you to maybe raise a ticket so we can check, okay, the mapping is correct and it's just because OMS was updated a couple of weeks or months ago or something. And yeah, because if that's the reason OMS was updated, then this update is not going to be reflected.
Okay. Next question, PY dynamic product report. When will the alphabetical sorting function be fixed for ATC and all packages report?
So here I've seen that there has been a couple of tickets like this. So the dynamic reports, you can sort them like if you click on the main bar, you can sort them like, okay, yeah, I want alphabetically and like if you were in an Excel. Now, we have identified that this is not the main priority of the dynamic reports. We will be doing some improvements on the dynamic reports this quarter. So mainly we will try to make, for example, the public report with all the products that people can export this report, because we have received this requirement, and we think it is important to make it like people can export this list. We will also improve some reports, like we will include, for example, the um, last update date of a product. We are thinking to maybe create one new record so people can access like the indications or something like this. We are discussing, but we have not prioritized this alphabetical sorting, because if you export the Excel, you can sort it alphabetically as if you were, I mean, like in Excel, and also directly in the reports, you can um, filter this. I'm trying to see if I can open the report to show you. But again, it has not been really prioritized because we think that this is an improvement, okay? But there are other improvements where we have, more, it's the priority is higher than this specific improvement.
Okay, perfect. Moving on. Is there any specific format we need to follow for populating the manufacturing authorization reference number data, given the varying formats from different authorities?
No, you just need to include the number as you have it in the document.
Okay. Next question. One of our medicinal products manufacturer information is incorrect. Same operation start and start date for all MBOs. The detail were corrected a month ago. We will raise a ticket today in service now, but wanted to know if this is a known issue.
Sorry, let me see.
I think they have the same operation type and start date for all MBOs.
It depends if it's a cap or non-cap, because if it's, I think it's a cap, the product that you're referring to. So yeah, if you submit a ticket and provide with the proof of the documentations, that's what is wrong, we can communicate this to the Stymet team so they can cross-check, because usually what they do is they're just reflecting what they have in the dossier for centrally authorized products. But yeah, any supporting documentation will definitely help the team to investigate and fix it.
Okay. So next question here, it's an attempt to rephrase another question. When enriching via API, the marketing status is mandatory in the IG. But when I pull the medicinal product, the marketing status may be empty. How to get such a record back into PMS via API?
You don't, because you don't have the marketing status information. So I don't know, Joseph, if you're referring to the edit functionality.
So no, that was what I was saying. So you will be able to send it, because we will not take this information. You will send the full fire message with the product, but we will just take the section on the manufacturers and the section on the structure pack size data. But anyway, we will confirm with the API team that not having this marketing status in the fire message, we will not, it will not give you an error message. But in principle, that is the way it's done, because right now, so how the enrichment process works in the product UI, it's in a similar way to how this is going to be done through the API. And we don't have the marketing status, for example, for non-caps in the UI. And we are able to update the manufacturers. So if you are able to do it through the UI, the same behavior will happen in the API. We will just not take this section. We will just take the specific section that can be enriched. And I hope now it's maybe a bit more clear. But anyway, we will confirm with the API team.
Perfect. Okay, so we have still 10 minutes left. For cap manufacturer MBO, the terms to use are to be in line, same granular level with EIF.
That is a very good question. So, as you know, manufacturers for caps are coming from Siamed, and historically, Siamed has not followed the same granularity and the same approach as in EAF. So we are discussing now with them um, how this will be updated because there will be kind of discrepancy between NAPs and caps. So for caps, you know that the manufacturer's list in RMS is hierarchical. You will only find the first level of the list. And this is okay for the moment. It's the way the data was captured in Siamed. For non-caps, you need to follow the full granularity. And then we will be discussing with the Siamed team how and if this will be corrected.
Perfect. Oops, sorry, just moved ahead. But actually, I would just mention as I went ahead that in a couple of minutes, my colleague Greta will launch a survey, so you can start providing feedback on this session, which is always really useful because we'll take it into account, of course, for the next one. Okay, so but it will be launched in just a couple of minutes. Okay, so back to the questions. Okay, perfect. So next question is add-on question to character variations. Understood, but harmonized to what? Normalize according to Unicode standard, preserve whatever MS Word has done. Do I not risk a third ACK if I replace a non-breaking space with a blank? Line breaks.
I would need more time to reply to this. So the thing is, when I say harmonize, I mean harmonize among the EV codes that belong to the same medicinal product. If you are using different spades, different ways of submitting the data, one is with the XML format and the other without it, that will create discrepancies. And for the system, then these EV codes will belong to different products because the name is not the same. So when I say harmonize is you should use the same standard, the same way of submitting the data for all these all the EV codes that belong to the product.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and I think the survey should be launched. No, I can't still see it, but anyways, it's going to be launched. Okay, so other question. We just had a case where third act exchanged the package description, now changed to new recommendations, YAN pack size, national pack number, etc., into SMPC section 6.5 in local language. Will that be taken care of?
So I've seen a similar case, and we discussed with the validation team that they should not change this the package description. So my recommendation would be to send a ticket to the XAMPD validation team so they can review this. We already told them like the package description should not be changed when it has been submitted by the applicant in a different format. Um, so I would do that, and I will remind them again that they should not be um, changing this.
Okay, perfect. Okay, next question. I started with adding of data in PMS. I've saved it, but I did not validate and submit because I have not added all the data which is needed. I continued later, then all of the data which I saved was lost. Why is this happening?
We need to check with the team of the product UI, but I'm not sure if you are following the correct instructions, because if you go to the change request and you just click on the PMS ID of the product, you will be redirected to the to the product itself, like the empty product that you have right now that without the changes, you need to click on edit change request or edit product, and there you will see all the changes that you have made and you can continue. So it depends where you click. If you click on the PMS ID, you will see, okay, this is my current product without any change. If you click on edit change request, then you will be able to see and continue with the changes. Maybe we can include this as a comment on the user manual. Um, but if, anyway, if you have done the correct process, you can open a ticket with the change request ID and we can have a look. But I would say most likely is you are not clicking on the correct place.
Okay, perfect. So do you see a possibility to the pack size enrichment in PMS PUI in the future, or has this to be performed in XCVMPD completely? Clear for ULCM, but I'm talking about the whole product portfolio. For instance, 10 times the amount of ULCM.
It could be, um, obviously it will be done like this when we decommission it. There are already discussions on when this will happen, etc. But yeah, it could be an option that we create those. But for the moment, XCVMPD is the only way we have to really take this data. So it's the only way to submit this information. But we will take this into account. It could be a good option to investigate. And for sure, when XCMPD is decommissioned, product UI will and the API will be the only ways to get this information.
Okay, perfect. Okay, manufacturer start end date. Which date in case of MRP, DCP, end of procedure date, or national phase date?
I need to check the guidance because it is not really linked to when the procedure was approved or not, because you can have a manufacturer that is included later.
So if you check section 2.3 of the chapter
Yeah.
2, specifically the start date, it says that it can be the start date can be linked either to a regulatory approval or not strictly linked to a regulatory approval. It depends. So if it's linked to the regulatory procedure, then you need to include the date of the finalization of the relevant regulatory procedure in this case. But if you have an operation that wasn't, for which a regulatory procedure wasn't required, like a type 1A variation, in this case, the date of the implementation of this change in the quality system can be provided for the start date. Then in section 2.4, end date, in terms of the manufacturing operation, is the same concept. It can be either linked to regulatory approval or not, and it depends. So if you read section 2.4, it says if you had to submit a regulatory procedure to communicate the change of the manufacturing operation, the date of the finalization of this regulatory activity will be provided. If it's not falling within the remits of the regulatory procedure, so a variation again type 1A, then just the date of the implementation of the change in the quality system can be included. So it's really depending on whether this is falling within or without the regulatory framework. I think it's in chapter 2.
Okay, perfect. So I think we're at the end of the session. So I just wanted to remember we still have a few questions, but I think we can address them in another moment. I just wanted to remind everyone to please fill in the survey. So as you can see, we already have quite a few answers. So please provide feedback because it's really useful for us. Okay, and I think we can close the session. So I'll leave the word to Veronica and Marcos. Thank you.
Yeah, from my side, thank you very much for attending this session again. We will have the next one, I think it's the 9th of April. So see you all there and thank you very much.